Hey everyone, thanks for watching. In this video, I'm going to be giving you ideas and things to consider when purchasing your first or even your second hydration bladder for hiking, backpacking, and so on. This was my very first one, and I can't pronounce it, but I will write it at the bottom. I think it's called like Bansendi or something like that, and it is a 2-liter. The second bladder that I purchased, or actually was purchased for me, is this one right here. It is a 3-liter, and it is a Teton Sport. And lastly, the third bladder that I purchased for myself is a very popular one called the Platypus. This is the Big Zip Fast Flow product. So if you're anything like me, when you first started, you had no idea, no clue what to even look for in a water hydration, hydration bladder. And so when I first started looking, I didn't know what to ask. I didn't know what to look for. So I just kind of chose one randomly. And this one, which I mentioned, was the first one that I bought. And it is a 2-liter. The thing that was nice about this is that when I first looked them up, I thought they were going to be expensive. However, I was able to get this one in a 2-pack. So this came with another one. I'll talk more about that in a second. So right away, that was a pro for me, not really knowing much about anything. So I only spent $15 on the set, so that breaks down to about $7.50 for each bladder. Okay, so firstly, it was very affordable. Secondly, what I loved about this one, again, not knowing very much, was this stem right here on it. I felt like the water flowed really easy from it. And I didn't really appreciate that a whole lot until I purchased or used other bladders. But the stem on this does, or the spout on it really does flow super easy, which is something that has become super important to me. So those unfortunately are kind of the only pros that I've found with this particular model. Again, the easy flow of water, it's affordable, and it came with a second one, which was important because my first one did break. So let's talk about cons on this one, okay? The first thing I noticed was that it's kind of difficult to clean and dry. A lot of the pieces don't come apart, like from here to here, this piece doesn't come apart right here. These pieces don't really come apart. And so right away I was kind of discouraged, thinking, I don't even know how to clean this thing in the first place, and these pieces don't come apart. It's very hard once water and soap gets in there to get the water and soap out. Okay, so that was a con right away. Very hard to clean and to dry. Also kind of sticking my hand in here. At the very end of this video, I will show you how I clean and dry my hydration bladders. It's something I've learned on other YouTube videos, not something I made up myself. It seems to work, and it's much more affordable and convenient than buying the powders and the chemicals that are meant for these. Okay, so kind of difficult to reach my hand in there and clean it. And then also very difficult to, I'm going to put this cord down for a second. Also very difficult to pour the water, okay, which is not something I considered right away, but because I am going to be backpacking, and I did take my hydration bladder and my camp stove out and realized that I need to be able to pour water from my hydration bladder into my camp stove, and so that's a little bit difficult to do, as you can tell. And so that's one of the disadvantages of buying this type that doesn't open on the top, which at the time I didn't even know there was other options. Okay, so difficult to transfer the water. Also, like I mentioned earlier, this came in a 2-pack. My other one was blue, and it only lasted me 3 uses before the seal right here decided to go bad. So it was already leaking on me within my 3rd time. So you get what you pay for when it comes to hydration bladders. It is affordable. You do get a backup one. This one has lasted me longer. I've had a couple more uses out of it than the last one, so maybe that one was just bad. Another thing I didn't really consider or think about when I was buying my first hydration bladder was how easy it would be to fill. Okay, so for example, I like to fill my water, my hydration bladders with our water tank that we have here at the house from Sparklets. So it's a little bit difficult to do that. I've had to learn how to like balance it and maneuver it to get it to fill to the exact, or to the max line without it spilling all over the place. So not great for filling, so not easy to fill, okay? So let's move on to the second one, which is the Teton Sport. And so this is the one that I got for Christmas from my son. Right away, I was super thrilled to get this one because it meant, again, easier to clean, okay? So yes, it was affordable. I looked it up on Amazon. He paid $15.45 for it. So we're looking at twice the price of the last one. So affordable still. I wouldn't say that's extremely ridiculous price. Easy to clean and dry, as you can tell. It's got this, you know, real big, wide open mouth here at the top. I can stick my hand all the way in there to clean it, to dry it out, and so on. I've taken this one out on a lot more outings than the last one, and also, you know, used it to pour water into my camp stove, and that's a much easier process than the last one. Okay. Also, it was easier to pour water into from my Sparklets container. Like I was saying, our Sparklets, you know, water system that we have. I did still, because of how flimsy this material is, it doesn't really stand up on its own. I'm kind of kneeling, got my knee under it, holding it in place, you know, kind of holding it with one hand and open like this and pressing the button. So easier than the last one to fill, but still a little bit complicated. Okay. So let's move on to cons with this one. Like I said, it was easier to fill than the last one, but still more difficult. So that's one of the cons. It's more difficult to fill than most. The other thing that I wasn't super impressed, and I didn't know anything about until I got my second one, was that the water flow on this one was not very great. As a beginner hiker, you know, you don't really think about it a whole lot, but you get a little out of breath when you're hiking, and when you're thirsty, the last thing you want to do is really suck and suck and suck for a long time before water comes out, and using a lot of strength. Okay, so I did realize right away when I started using this one that in my previous one, I really appreciated how fast the water flowed, and realized quickly how hard I had to work to get hydrated with this one. So that's one of the cons for this, and something to consider that you wouldn't even think about as a beginner hiker, or a beginner, you know, with purchasing a hydration bladder. Okay, another thing that I noticed, and I almost got really upset, within a couple sittings, I noticed a leak in the same exact spot down here, and I don't know if you can see it, but there's this little red ring right here. And so every once in a while you need to make sure that that is tight and in place where it should be, otherwise you're going to have a leak. So I always also put all my hydration bladders into a trash bag and then into my backpack because I have trust issues. The other thing that I didn't like about this right away is not so much about the product as much as it is the fact that they didn't really give instructions on how to use this, or the instructions that they did use weren't very great. It took me several times before I even understood how to use this system up here at the top. And that's because I've never used hydration bladders or anything similar to it. And so what I was trying to do in the very beginning was I would zip it up, I would fold it up, and then try to place this over it like this and into it. Okay, and once I would get to about here, it wouldn't go any further, and I had to really fight and wrestle with it. And it wasn't until I talked to my husband, and he showed me the proper way of putting it on. And so it's got these little grooves, and so it's kind of like a puzzle, and these pieces have to line up and go into it. So it's really, I didn't feel like it was that self-explanatory, and again, there wasn't instructions that seemed to really tell you how to use it properly, so that kind of frustrated me, and considered that as a con, especially after purchasing my next bladder, which I'll show you here in a second. And lastly, off to the very popular brand that lots of hikers use, the Platypus. As I said, this is called the Big Zip. It's a 3-liter and it's also fast flow, which is the exact reason I was attracted to it. I said I definitely want to try out what a higher quality bladder gets me, and I'm especially looking for something that has a fast flow. Okay, so first of all, the first thing I noticed right away was that it comes with this nice little design right here, where you just pinch these two pieces together and it opens up the mouth. So this is great for pouring and for filling, right? So when I go to my Sparklets water dispenser, all I do is pinch this and hold the thing. And so I don't and it's also made of a much more sturdy material, so I don't have to be like balancing it or juggling it with my knee or anything to try to keep it in place. It kind of holds itself up. So again, great for filling, easy fill process with this neat little device that they've put here. Easy for pouring, right? If I'm out and I want to pour some water from my water bladder into my cook stove, I'm just going to pinch and turn and pour, okay? And actually it holds its frame a whole lot better than my last one does, and I don't have to juggle or balance it while I'm pouring it. Okay, another thing, and this was proven true, it's called the Fast Flow. It has this nozzle on the end of it. And I've actually seen these on a lot of hiker videos that I watch where they've cut this off, kind of turned it into a straw for a smart water bottle. So it's got an on and off switch right here. So, you know, off means no water's flowing, doesn't matter how hard you suck on it. You turn it and turn it to the on position. And in fact, my first time when I put it on there, I couldn't get any water out because I had bit it so hard. You have to apply pressure to it before you suck on it. And I had bit it so hard because I was used to my previous one before. So I had to really relax a little bit and water just was flowing like crazy. So yes, it holds true to that. I really do appreciate how quickly the water comes out of this when I'm hiking and I'm out of breath. And the last thing I want to do is suck on something with a lot of strength, okay? So definitely the water flows easy. I also found that it was easy to use. Like I said, even though it didn't come with instructions, there wasn't anything there that I had to really wrestle with or look up online or Google. You know, it's got the same kind of, or a similar, not the same kind of system, but a similar zip system. So this zips up on the top here, and it's not doing it right this second because it's a little frozen because I just pulled it out of the freezer, which I'll tell you why at the end of this video. And then after that part is zipped, then this just slides right on top of it, just like that. And it's super easy to understand. I think anyone can really get the hang of it. So like I said, another benefit is that it's made of much more durable material. This plastic is like twice, if not 3 times as thick as my other bladders and whatever it is that they're made out of. So it kind of stands up on its own. It holds its own frame. There's even this like spine thing on the inside, which I have mixed feelings about when it comes to cleaning and drying, but otherwise it really kind of gives it this kind of a spine, you know, to hold it up and steady and in place. Okay, so let's talk about cons in this Platypus bladder here. It's not super affordable. In fact, I paid $40 for this. So you kind of do get what you pay for with everything, really. But this is, like I said, is a very popular brand with many hikers, and I can see why. But it is not on the line of affordable. Like if you're a first-time hiker, or whatever it is, you know, that you're purchasing a hydration bladder for, you're probably not going to want to just jump to spending $40. So it's not super affordable. So that is one of the cons. It really isn't easy to clean and dry. Some of the parts do come apart. I've kind of struggled to get this piece off here. I've kind of just determined that if I clean it well, I really don't need to get that piece off because it doesn't seem to want to come off, at least in my model. And I've looked up and I can't find online anyone else that says how they got it off there. However, these parts do come apart with just a push of the button, and you can clean easily the rest of these pieces. But in all of these bladders, you really do have to get kind of creative, and we'll talk more about that in the cleaning process later in this video. Okay, so some of the, like I said, some of the pieces don't come apart, which I didn't like. And also with this spine section that's in on the inside, when it comes to the way that I clean and dry my hydration bladders, it's really difficult. And with how narrow this is, to get my arm in all the way versus my Teton Sport, where I feel like I get my hand in there all the way to clean it and to dry it out properly. So it's not impossible, it can be done, but it's just a little more difficult. Okay, so that's the cons on this. And again, that's just giving you something to consider when you're purchasing your water bladder, because they're not all created equal. And so hopefully I've given you some ideas and some things to consider before purchasing. You know, what it all comes down to, what's priority for you. If budget is priority, you know what, just pick up a couple of those cheap ones, and you know, you'll have a backup one like I did. But if you're going to be really getting into hiking consistently, or whatever it is that you do that you need a water bladder, you know, once or twice a week, or maybe even more, you're going to want to put more money into it to get a better design and better quality out of it. Okay, I'm happy with my Teton Sport. Again, I think the only thing that I really couldn't live without with the Teton Sport is just the water flow and how hard it is to get a drink when I want to. If they could change that, I could kind of work around the other things with the, you know, the juggling it while I pour and fill it. But otherwise, the Platypus honestly wins. But I mean, it's not going to be the bladder for everyone, but I'm definitely pleased with the Platypus. And I think for $40, even though I didn't want to pay that much, I think it's worth every penny. Okay, so now we're going to discuss how I clean and store my hydration bladders. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is take them apart. And again, that's why I mentioned in the beginning, things you may not consider, but get a hydration bladder if you can that is easy to come apart. Lots of pieces come apart for better cleaning. The second thing you're going to do is, you know, wash them in warm soapy water thoroughly as you can. And then rinsing them thoroughly, obviously with warm water. And you might have to get creative with that. And what I mean is this, for example, you obviously have to put pressure on this to get a drink out of it. So in order to clean thoroughly and to rinse thoroughly and to dry thoroughly, you will need to put pressure on this to get all of the water out. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll put pressure on it, hold it up against the faucet, let water run through it as constantly as I run through it as constantly as I can, you know, get a really thorough rinse. Same thing with drying. I'll open that up, kind of swing this around a little bit. So you kind of have to be creative in the process of cleaning and drying it, making sure that you're getting every crack and crevice inside the tubes. And once that's done, then I will dry them. And again, being vigilant, making sure you're, you know, swing those ropes towards the tubes around, getting as much water out as you can, squeezing them to make sure the water can flow through and drain easily, and then, you know, sticking your hand in a paper towel inside there, wiping it down, getting as much major spots of water dry as you can. It doesn't have to be 100% dry, because the next step will take care of that on its own. Okay, so after that's all been done, and I'll show you in a minute how I store mine, kind of wind them up as wind and roll them up as compact as you can get them. Some will go more compact than others. Place them into a freezer bag and put them into your freezer. And so you never have to worry about mold, because the freezer is going to freeze it and keep it fresh. And then but what you do need to know is that when you're ready to use it, you will need to pull it out 10 to 15 minutes prior and let it defrost before you start putting your tubes together and putting water in it. Okay, so I guarantee, I've been using this for about 5 months. I've seen no mold. I use my hydration bladders at least 2 or 3 times a week, and I've not had any problems. I've never used a chemical inside of my bladders that are used for cleaning. I've seen them online. I've heard people talk about them. I don't use those. I use the process that I just mentioned. And like I said, I've never had any problems. Okay, so thank you for watching. Give a thumbs up if you've liked this video and share it with someone else. Okay, God bless.